So we'll go ahead and note that when that occurs. Down far off to the right of the dais is our city clerk, Ms. Judy Herron. If anyone has any comments tonight that you'd like to make during the meeting, if you could please go ahead and fill out a comment card in the back of the room, and then go ahead and please provide that to Ms. Herron, and she will go ahead and call you at the time that your item is up for discussion. If everyone could go ahead, please, now, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start this evening. We have two proclamations, and I'm going to go ahead and actually read them from the dais this evening, since we aren't providing them to anyone, but we wanted to go ahead and commemorate the occasion. So the first proclamation we have this evening is celebrating Immigrant Heritage Month. Whereas California has long been home to the largest number of immigrants in the United States, having accepted early settlers along their seaports as far back as the 17th century, and whereas generations of immigrants from every corner of the globe have built our country's economy and created the unique character of our nation, and whereas immigrants continue to grow businesses, innovate, strengthen our economy, and create American jobs in Menlo Park, California, and whereas immigrants have provided the United States with unique social and cultural influence, fundamentally enriching the extraordinary character of our nation, and whereas immigrants have been tireless leaders not only in securing their own rights and access to equal opportunity, but also have campaigned to create a fairer and more just society for all Americans. And whereas despite these countless contributions, the role of immigrants in building and enriching our nation has frequently been overlooked and undervalued throughout our history, continuing to the present day. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Ray Mueller, the mayor of the city of Menlo Park, do hereby proclaim June 2019 as Month of the Immigrant Heritage in Menlo Park, California. Encourage all citizens to learn more about the social and economic impact of immigrants in all 50 states. Anyone want to provide any comment before we move on to the next? Nope. Okay. The next proclamation we have this evening is celebrating Juneteenth Day. Whereas Juneteenth is the oldest known commemorating the ending of slavery in the United States, and whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, declaring the slaves in the Confederate territory free, paving the way for the passing of the 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery in the United States of America. And whereas word about signing the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed some 2.5 years to June 19, 1865, and reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and the southwestern United States. And whereas Emancipation Day observations are held on different days in different states in the South and Southwest and in other parts of the nation, and whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, as has been celebrated by the African American community for over 150 years. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Ray Mueller, mayor of the city of Menlo Park, do hereby proclaim June 9th, 2019 as the week of Juneteenth Day in Menlo Park, California, and urge all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in African American history and the heritage of our nation. And I apologize, that's June 19th, 2019. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next item on the agenda. Our next item this evening is item E, Commission Reports. Item E1 is our Library Commission update and announcements. At this time, I'd like to introduce everyone to Library Commission Chair Katie Hadrovic, who will make the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Mueller and council members. My name is Katie Hadrovic, and I am the current chair of the Library Commission. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present to you tonight. It's been a busy year for the Library Commission. Our efforts to assist in the planning for a new Bellhaven branch library continue. We have played a role in both the Neighborhood Library Needs Assessment completed in June of 2018 and the recently completed Space Needs Study that started in October of 2018. Commissioners have toured other new libraries in the Bay Area, participated in focus group discussions, hosted a community workshop at the Belhaven branch, and reviewed both studies as they progressed. We have supported the library weighing in on its acceptable use policy, the auto renewal of checked out items, and its strategic plan update. The Belhaven Library has extended its hours of operation, making it more accessible to the community. The library is making good progress on expanding its collection and is actively working on its adult collection for the Belhaven branch. We have also been participating in other task forces and community efforts. For example, during my time on the Library Commission, I have attended several meetings of both the Belhaven Neighborhood Library Advisory Committee and the Parks and Recreation Department's Facilities Master Plan Study. Additionally, as a commission, we have reviewed both the library fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and the library strategic plan. Some of our current work plan projects have made progress. We are thrilled that the library's Little Free Library program, which we have supported for years, is moving forward with the recent installation of 23 little library boxes throughout our community and 2 mobile little libraries that will remain on display near the circulation desks at both branches and be used as community outreach tools. We are pleased to be able to dedicate the little library displayed at the main branch to former Library Commissioner Esther Bunya, who passed away earlier this year. The film discussion group, created out of a prior commission's work plan and led by former Commissioner Lynn Bramlett, continues to be popular with library patrons. Likewise, another prior work plan effort, the Science Cafe, has turned into some fantastic STEM and STEAM programs, including Science Night. We have benefited from having key library partners come to our meetings to tell about their work and share information. The Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation presented to the Commission in April, and Project Read Literary Partners and the Menlo Park Historical Association just visited our meeting last night. The Commission has established an annual agenda calendar which helps with our long-range planning. We have held our meetings at the Belhaven Branch Library in January 2018 and in January and April of 2019. And we plan to hold additional meetings in Belhaven in the future to allow for the fullest possible public outreach and engagement of our Menlo Park community. Our top priority as a commission remains the construction of a new Belhaven Branch Library. Our work plan update is complete and is before you tonight. I appreciate both the opportunity to speak with you tonight and your continued commitment to libraries in Menlo Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your service. Great report. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add? No, we really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead now and move on to public comment. And actually, Ms. Herron, if you want to go ahead and give Councilmember Carlton a call, that'd be great. Under public comment, the public may address the City Council on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the City Council once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The City Council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the City Council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Do we have any public comment speakers this evening?
No, sir.
Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and then move on to our consent calendar, and let's go ahead and wait. Oh.
Yes, but your item is I3.
All right.
Thank you. What did you want to speak on? The kennels. So was it on the agenda or no? No. Mamila, we do have one public comment.
Okay. We can go ahead and take that public comment at this time.
Jackie, you can go right on up.
I just battled the Facebook traffic. I work right next door. We live at
Could you go ahead and pull that mic a little closer to you? I apologize.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. So we live at the apartment communities that were rezoned off of Bayfront Haven Avenue. And we have had issues with the kennel and the noise levels coming from the kennel. We've reached out to PD and they won't help us. In fact, we're told that the kennel is exempt. We have, we've reached out to Eleanor Hilario. She has come out twice, but when you only come out for a 5-minute period of time, you're not going to get the scope of what is really going on. The levels are 70 decibels. Last night, 5 a.m., I measured them at 72 at the highest, and it's constant. So we wanted to address you guys to ask for help. If PD can't address the situation because the kennel has been there for so long, then we don't really have any recourse. We can't, it's so frustrating. We can't have our windows open. Our children can't study. We can't sleep. If you wear earplugs, you can't wake up for work in the morning because you can't hear an alarm. The dogs bark constantly. They're German shepherds. And honestly, it just seems like everybody has a conflict of interest. The police department boards and breeds their dogs there, which the kennel has made very well known. The city attorney, who I reached out to, I spoke with his assistant, and she basically told me that they're conflicted out because one of the owners is involved with the kennel, or one of their lawyers is involved with ownership of the kennel, so we can't get any help there. And code enforcement has blatantly told me that the kennel has been there for a long time and basically making us feel like it's not fair. It's not fair that we're saying we have a right to have peace and quiet in our own homes. We didn't build the community, and we certainly were not on the planning commission that backed an apartment community up to a dog kennel. The apartment community is not soundproofed appropriately on the backside. And we're not, at least I'm not, wanting to attack the kennel because they have been here for a long time, and I believe that they have a good service. But that being said, we are asking for your help, and what I ask of you today is to allow us to provide a lot of sound recordings so you guys can actually see what has been going on.
So, fortunately, 3 minutes is up. However, I see you have a friend here with you.
I do.
You're a resident. So what I would suggest is that you go ahead and dedicate 3 minutes. Yeah, so one of you can fill out a comment card and provide it to Ms. Herron and then dedicate your time to the speaker. We can go ahead and continue. Great. So
And
another 3 minutes, Ms. Herron.
Can I give you guys something that I prepared?
You can provide us with information. The only thing that I need to tell you is we can't respond to you tonight.
I know that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Are you going to fill out did you fill out a comment card? Does she have to fill out a comment card for us to continue?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah, you need to fill it out, but you can continue while she's doing it.
This is just a snippet. And I've done a lot of research and gathered a lot of information because, feeling like when you have police and code enforcement telling you, well, sorry, but, you basically invaded our space. That's pretty much the way that they make us feel. And it's really bad. And it's not just at night. It's all day long. So myself and a few of the other residents have recorded the sound, not when code enforcement comes out, but have recorded the real sounds at the property and have compiled 3 months worth of legitimate sound recordings. We also videoed the sound meter as we were recording, so there was no question as to what was making the noise. I personally, and I don't know about the others here, but I came here today to ask for you guys to review what we have compiled, but also to add something to an agenda item so that there can be further discussion about this, because it affects both communities on that back side of the property, and I'm sure it affects the businesses as well that line the other side of us. So they may be exempt from a zoning ordinance, but I can't find anything that shows that any business or entity is exempt from producing 70 decibels of noise constantly, all the time, infiltrating the community. I can't find anything, and I've done records requests, and I really have not gotten anything that shows me that. And so I'd like to be able to work with you guys to try and find a reasonable solution. I know the management at the apartment community has worked with the kennel to no avail to try and remedy the situation, but for some reason that I wasn't privy to, it was nothing could really be agreed upon. So I'm here to ask for it to go on the agenda and for it to be reviewed in accordance with the general plan, because it is certainly not in accordance with the general plan from what I can read. It is not a live, work, play. It is a windows closed, don't go outside, can't sleep environment, and it's not healthy.
All right, thank you.
Monica?
So our city manager is sitting right there, and she's taken down all the information. If you provided your contact information, we'll go ahead and be in touch with you all regarding that. We can't actually speak to it right now,
Sure.
but we will be in touch with you regarding the issue.
We would so appreciate just someone just to hear us, not from the perspective of the dog kennel, but from the perspective of real people who live there. And I'm not privy to this Facebook transition. My husband is actually, he can't be involved, but he works for one of the apartment communities. He's one of the directors. And so I'm stuck. I don't get to leave in 6 months. I am stuck. I don't have those same rights, but I do know I have the right to live in an environment where my home is not infiltrated with noise from dogs.
All right. Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Monica, do you want to say anything?
Our next speaker this evening is Judith Hansen. Are you Judith Hansen? Hansen. I'm sorry, it says Hansen, but I'm doing my best I can. Come on, join us, Judith.
Good evening. My name is Judith Howson, and I'm also a resident at 3639 Haven Avenue, where the apartments are. I want to intersperse with everything that she said, that I feel also that it's an inhumane existence for those dogs. They bark and howl, sometimes all night, and the fact that you can't have your... it's beautiful here. I'm a resident only 7 years. I'm from suburbs of Philadelphia. So I'm used to having windows open, and I have never opened my windows at that apartment. And I've lived there 1 year and 7 months. It's a serious insult that we can't do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we hear you this evening. We will be in touch with you all to talk with you about the issue. Our next public speaker this evening is Karen Sargis. Is Ms. Sargis available?
Good evening. I do not feel comfortable speaking publicly. I actually sent an email to my friend and neighbor. I didn't know I will be right on the spot here. I've been suffering from the dog barking for almost 2 years, and it's unbearable. It's 24/7, and I feel like that the dogs are distressed. And my friends or family members or coworkers, when they come to visit, or even people who work on the property, they are all appalled by the sounds, and everyone is concerned for the dog's sake, and of course for our sake as well, because it's extremely uncomfortable to function. And I work for the school district, and I really need a good sleep and function and work with the children. I think that's what I would like to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker this evening is Francois Michael.
Hello there, Council. Mike Francois. I'm your neighbor next door from East Valley. I was here last time when the election, when Ollie got elected. But I just want to share something which I finally cleaned up. Senate Bill 967, which is a cremation bill, which goes into effect as of 2020, which gives all crematories a right to pour bodies after they liquefy them down the drain with no septic tank or no other means of catching the debris. That is a law. Governor Brown tabled it in 2011, but he signed it in 2017, of October 17, 2017. So what I'm trying to say, as of January 1st, any funeral homes you have in this city can, after melting a body down with 5% lye and 90% water, 95% water, they can just pour it down the drain, and they assume it's going to go to your water supply and be cleaned up. And as we know, and everybody knows in here, that will affect everybody. Everybody thinks it's a joke. It's not a joke. It will go in, because the system we have in place now does not take out all the medicines as they are. And that's been proven. Water is not 100% when it comes from Hetch Hetchy or from anywhere, unless you use microfiltration and ultraviolet and so forth. And also in 2020, he also signed a bill that states everybody will have to have vaccinations, no matter who you are or whatever your religious background is. And a lot of you up here in the past, council members and people in the audience, grew up without vaccinations. And you don't need a governor and corporations telling them what we should have and when we will have it. And some corporations are even thinking of not insuring you if you want to have the vaccinations. And they've even talked about your children will not be able to attend public schools without vaccinations. And a lot of vaccinations have things in them that black people can't even take some vaccinations because there's a substance in it that harms them. But there are other people who take vaccinations that doesn't harm them, but it's a lot of people who take vaccinations that do harm them. So those are the two issues you will have to deal with, and I just want to bring it to your attention, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, any other public comment cards this evening? All right. Has Councilmember Carlton been able to join us yet?
Let me try.
All right.
Hello?
Hi, Councilmember Carl. Are you able to hear us okay?
Yeah?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, great. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and move on to our consent calendar. Does anyone have any items that they would like to pull from the consent calendar? At the outset, I'd like to pull item G2, G4, and G5. Does anyone have any other items they'd like to pull? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar?
So I'm trying to get off of I have a comment about G3. Did you pull that one?
I did not pull item G3, no. Go ahead, Councilmember Carlton, provide your comment.
Sorry, I'm just making sure I have the right one. No, sorry, I have a comment about G2. Apologies.
Okay, so at this time, can I have a motion to approve item G1, G3, and G6? Councilmember Nash has moved. Can I have a second? Thank you, Councilmember Combs. Let's go to vote. Councilmember Carlton, your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
The motion passes unanimously with items G2, G4, and G5 pulled.
Okay, so in polling, I pulled item G2, and if it's okay, Councilmember Carlton, I'll make my comment first and then go ahead and talk with you about it. So on item
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. On item G2, the minimum wage ordinance, in reviewing the proposed ordinance, I appreciate that staff tried to capture what's been talked about in terms of making sure that with respect to the CPI, that there was some way for that to be looked at in terms of economic downturn. But I am concerned that it's a bit unwieldy to ask council every year to go ahead and vote on that. And I think what would make sense would be, instead of doing that, to have it roll over, but as a policy, have council look at that every year. And if they want to take an affirmative action, they can, rather than have them actually have to take that affirmative action every year. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes? Okay. And then the other thing that I wanted to make clear, because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make certain, so we're trying to balance this here. And what I don't want to have happen is that working families who are at this level, this minimum level, would somehow see their wages rolled back in a year. And so there's a policy, I believe, in Redwood City that when they looked at this, that would say that you're never rolling the minimum wage down. It's just a question of what's happening within that next year. And so if everyone's okay in having that in the proposed wage ordinance that we put in front of the stakeholders to discuss, I'd appreciate that. Everyone's in agreement? Great. Councilmember Carlton, did you want to go ahead and provide your comment?
Sure. On the list of parties that would be engaged in the communication, it did not list the Chamber of Commerce. And seeing as they represent a lot of the small and medium businesses as well, I would like to make sure that they are also involved in the communication aspect of this.
Great. We can go ahead and make sure that they're part of the stakeholder groups. So you have the direction that CPI, San Mateo County will occur every year, and just council as a policy will look at it, but doesn't have to affirmatively vote on it every year. If there's something that comes up they want to address, that's up to that council to go ahead and take up at that time. All right. I think we're good then on that one. So if I can go ahead and have a motion, and if there's something that we have to look at later in that, that's obviously the proposed ordinance, so we can look at and make amendment to that at a later date through the stakeholder process. So I need a motion for item, yes, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
My question is, I noticed in the staff report that there was a comment about making sure that whomever started a job with Menlo Park started at $15 an hour. So it doesn't say anything about current employees that are under 15.
Yes, Nick Pegueros, Assistant City Manager. Just as a point of clarification, we have taken measure based on our understanding of council guidance to early implement the $15 per hour minimum wage for city paid employees. We have worked for both the new hires and the existing hires. So anyone who earned less than $15 per hour have been brought up to that wage.
I have one last question. I got a call probably about 15 minutes before I came in about a community engagement meeting that was supposed to happen last Friday, and I informed them that they had to be mistaken because there wasn't anything scheduled. But is there anything in the pipeline for community engagement, a date already set in the near future?
We are targeting August and September to do that, but we will work, and those are more workshops than those would be workshops that we make sure get publicized ahead of time.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So motion to approve item G2. Councilmember Nash has made the motion. Need a second. Councilmember Taylor has made the second. Let's go ahead and vote. Councilmember Carlton, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to item G4. I pulled that item. Is there any? The reason why I pulled that item was because it was a bid process, and we did not choose either the lowest bid or the medium bid. We picked the most expensive bid. And so in looking at that, I'm trying to, it's not only is it the most expensive, it's 25% over what the next closest bid was. And so in looking at that, just wanted to hear a little bit more about that, and then not only that, but also when we look at items like this of competitive bidding, when we have a contractor who has provided us with services, I'm very interested to know what they paid us on their last contract and what the increase is on the new bid. So, and that's why I pulled item G5, because item G5 didn't really show me if there had been an increase going forward historically. So, Ms. Nagaya, thank you for answering the questions regarding this.
Sure. Nikki Nagaya, Assistant Public Works Director, so I can speak to G4, and then we may need other staff members to come up and talk about G5. But for this particular contract, it's for the city's signing and striping program, and so what we do is take the budget that's allocated each year and work with contractors, and so this is the bid process to identify those contractors. We did receive 3 bids, and what we're proposing is to award a contract to both the lowest bidder, so that's Tri-Valley Striping, and so their cost estimates came in the lowest, and then also to Crisp Company, who is a higher priced bid, but does have additional resources in terms of their ability to manage traffic flows on particularly high volume arterial streets. And so we use then a selection process as we're awarding individual projects that we do in the contract to make sure that we're using the most cost-effective strategy going forward. So we wouldn't award a simple restripe project to Tri-Valley, or excuse me, to Crisp. We would do that work through Tri-Valley and give them more complex projects that involve a higher level of attention to those high volume arterials as we go forward. So we just use staff to review those individual projects as they go through.
Okay, and is this bid that they gave us comparable to the pricing that they've given us and that we've had previously with them, or is there a jump here? Or
so it's comparable. There are a few line items that are more expensive than the last time we awarded a contract 3 years ago, and those involve what we call mobilization. So essentially the amount of upfront investment that they require to just get a crew here. And so that's gone up a little bit, but it's not significant, and we haven't increased this budget line item. So we expect that we'll still be able to do about the same amount of work each year in the program going forward.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking these questions, I trust our professional staff judgment, but I also want bidders to understand that we're looking closely at this, even those who have a relationship with us previously. So just in going forward in the future, if we could sort of list what that last contract was, so we know how to ask questions about that, that would be great. That being the case, now we've satisfied the explanation of that on both and talked about it. These aren't huge increases on these 2 contracts, so I'm not going to try to block them this evening. But I do want this issue addressed going forward, so that it's too easy for bidders to think they have a relationship with us. So we'll just add a little bit here and add a little bit there. So in the bid.
Great. Yeah, I think we can add that in the future.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
My question is, looking at, this one is requesting a 3-year contract. And what impacts on staff is if we change that to reviewing it every year? And I'll ask the same question on G5 as well.
So it's twofold. It's first the impact to actually go through the bid process, review the bids, and then prepare the staff report and get it in front of you for award. And then secondly, the time it takes to actually get under contract and get the work started. So in this particular case, each year we work with the contractors to make sure that there's as little as possible lag in the turnover of the fiscal year. And so we try to go out to bid in the spring so that there can be a contract award prior to the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. And then the contract needs to be in place so that if we have emergency work, we're ready to go on July 1st. So say there's a sign knocked down, something that's a safety issue, we need to have that contract in place as soon as possible to the beginning of the fiscal year. So it would be that additional level of work that would be required each year, and the special attention to make sure that there's no lag in the summer as the fiscal year turns over.
Okay. Councilmember Nash.
I'm wondering, would that have to take place if all you're doing is, it says that it's extended for up to 3 years, so just to review the extension process, or as opposed to actually getting new bids?
So certainly if you wanted to see the extension as an update each year, we wouldn't be going back out to bid, but then we wouldn't really be bringing you any new information. We don't allow the contractors to change prices
other than just
part of
how
those
they've
extensions. Been doing. Sure, like a progress update.
Great. Any other questions before? Can we go ahead and move item D4 and D5? I need a motion to move item D4, D5. Don't want to do it?
No, it's fine. I'm actually looking to Mayor Pro Tem Taylor to see whether or not that was something that you wanted to have reviewed by every year or not. Oh.
If there isn't a huge impact on staff time, it would be great to have some type of a progress report.
Before you take a vote on this, can I ask, do you want a progress report where we send out just an informational brief to the council, or do you want something on the agenda? Because I think as we've been experiencing, these agendas are long and arduous, and this would just be adding to that load. I mean, part of the effort of making these longer contracts is an attempt for efficiency.
And it can just be a progress report. It doesn't have to be something that's agendized. Okay. I just looking at a 3-year contract, and nothing would come before us for another 3 years. So,
is there one? Is that a concern for both G4 and G5, or specifically G5?
Both.
Both. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and would a check-in at the 1.5 year mark be all right? Or all right. So a check-in at the 1.5 year mark. And that can be done informally. Is that all right? Yes. Okay. So with that addition, can I have a motion to approve G4 and G5? Mayor Pro Tem Taylor has made the motion. Councilmember Nash has made the second. Let's go ahead and vote. Councilmember Carlton, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And with that, we're going to go on and move to our public hearings. Sorry, I just want to make sure there was no public comments on any consent items. All right, so moving on to our public hearings. Our first item this evening is item H1, adopt resolution number 6483, overruling protests and ordering the improvements, confirming the diagram, and ordering the levy and collection of assessments for landscaping assessment district for fiscal year 2019-2020. Senior Civil Engineer Teresa Avidian and Assistant Public Works Director Chris Lamb will introduce the item.
Good evening, council members. I'm Teresa Avidian, Senior Civil Engineer, and I'll be introducing the item for the Landscape Assessment District. So the Landscape Assessment District collects funds to be used for maintenance of city street trees and sidewalk damage due to the city street trees, as well as street sweeping. The district was established in 1983 for the purposes of street tree maintenance, and it was updated in 1990 to include sidewalk repair due to the street tree damage. For fiscal year 2019-2020, the engineer's report proposes a 10% increase in the tree maintenance, which is equals $7.38 per single family equivalent, and a 20% increase for sidewalk maintenance, which comes out to $7.22 per single family equivalent. An annual action is required by the city to continue collection of the assessments. So every year we're going through the three-step process outlined above. In January, the council initiated the proceedings and adopted a resolution describing the improvements and directing preparation of the engineer's report. In May, council adopted two resolutions. One gave preliminary approval of the engineer's report, and the second was a resolution of intent to order the levy and collection of assessments. And then tonight, of course, is the public hearing to consider the resolution overruling protests and ordering the levy and collection of the assessments. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Sorry, we have public comment on this item this evening. Mr. Van Pelt, Steve Van Pelt.
Now I get to adjust this. I'm Steve Van Pelt, and I live in Suburban Park, and most of our trees were put in right after the war when the whole area was built. So I read this pretty carefully, and I realize this is just the assessment, but it involved a lot of math and projecting out where they think with these assessments, I think they feel that they can do all of the things that need to be done in 2.5 years. Over a year ago, I called in both the damage to my sidewalk from my city tree and also a depression at the end of my street, which the engineer I talked to was very concerned about because it may not be just the depression, it could be the start of a sinkhole. And nothing's been done. So yesterday, that wasn't a long time ago, but I started calling in just to make sure that the things that I had reported and expected to be acted on are actually in the inventory. And I haven't gotten, I got an email for Hugo Torres, who I understand is now in charge of this, but I haven't heard back. So my basic concerns are people that have had work done, all right, on Oakhurst Place, where all the liquid ambers are, just have the tree removed and another tree planted, but in most cases, the roots aren't taken care of. And a lot of things just repair the sidewalk and cut off some of the roots. In the attachment C, it talks about proactive measures, and it talks about replacing older trees. And I'm assuming that there are a lot of and, because the project I think needs to happen in front of my house involves taking out the old tree, all right, repairing the sidewalk, the curb, the gutter, and putting in a new tree, hopefully in a different place of in a different species so that it doesn't do the encroaching. So those are my concerns, and I'm just wondering, is there some kind of a transparent way that anybody can find out what is on the inventory? My basic concern is that we have totally undercounted the amount of work that needs to be done, at least in my neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and bring it back up to questions from the dais. Any questions on the dais? Councilmember Carlton, do you have any questions?
No, I thought we did have a list, though, of what was coming up in terms of the work done, as per the gentleman's comment. How flexible are we on that list as things come up? And what's the process that the staff go through to deal with issues that may evolve out of order?
So the sidewalk repair program, I know, has a backlog. I think the report mentions there's a 3-year backlog. We're hoping to catch up within 3 years. So we take, complaints and residents' concerns and hazards, and we add them to the list. And unfortunately, there's a backlog, so it takes time to get to them. But certainly, I can look into, and staff can address any concerns that we hear tonight and specific hazards that some people want to mention.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Taylor, did you have a comment? I do. So a 10%, 20% increase, frankly, when I look at that, it jumps off the page at me. And if the reason for that is that we intend to do an increased amount of work in this next time period, this time frame, and that's something that then we can turn around and say to the taxpayer, why? Okay. But what's important to me is that we actually have the metrics to prove that we did it. Because what's going to happen at the end of these 3 years, or this time period, is we're going to need to make a decision again. And what I think as a taxpayer is going to expect is that there was a good cause for that 10 to 20%. And if we're going back and doing a rate increase again, why are we doing that? And if we're not, if we are, you see what I'm saying? Like I want to track around that issue. So if there's a metric that we can provide to that, or a tracking mechanism of what we actually get, what we expect to get done during this time period and what we actually get done with that rate increase, I think that's really important to be looking at. 10 to 20% rate increases are big. And and trust me, people do pay attention to that when the bill comes and they say why. And so what I really would like to do is I think what we talked about, we do have that list, but being able to show what that rate of improvement was expected as a result of that is accountability. So looks like everyone's shaking their head. Yes, that can be accomplished. My colleagues agree with me. Yes, everyone's shaking their head yes, so we have an agreement on that. Councilmember Nash.
In future reports, it would be really helpful to see that we did have a backlog and to know what the backlog is. And again, just more metrics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
Is it possible to put an inventory list online? So at least, and you don't have to put the address, but you can put the street, so that this gentleman's question can be answered. Is there a way to have a transparent inventory?
That's something that we can look into. Yeah, we'll look into that. It's a good idea.
Thank you. And my last question is, so how did you come up with the 20%? Was that based on an estimate of what you thought would cover the backlog? How did you come up with 20%?
So the 20% comes from the engineer's report, and it takes into account what the expenses are and what the revenue is. And so to maintain the level of service that we've been providing, it requires a 20% increase for the trees. I'm sorry, the 20% for the sidewalk program.
So would the increase cover all of the backlog?
It's not covering all of the backlog in the first year, but at that rate, we should be able to catch up in 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What I'm going to ask is that it come back on an informational item, just the list of what the list and what expects to be accomplished this year because of that increase. So that's of that 20% increase, just so that we have that document when this takes effect and people ask the question, we can pull it out and say, this is why. All right?
Are you looking for specifics, like the addresses?
I don't know if we need this. I'll let you guys figure out, like maybe you do metrics on what the square foot of sidewalk is or something like that. Mm-hmm. But what we need is a metric that we say this is why and this is what's going to be accomplished in this amount of time. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
My question is about the public noticing. So I noticed that you put it in the daily news. Do we put it online with the almanac? Are there any other resources to make sure that people, that we reach more of our Menlo Park residents?
I think it's just a standard noticing that we did for this one. I will note again that there were three council meetings on this topic. So the first is in January, kind of outlining the process, and then again in May. So there has been some buildup and outreach for each of those meetings, and then in addition to the notice in the newspaper 2 times prior to tonight.
Excellent. Any other questions? Any other concerns? All right, let's get a motion. So motion is to go ahead and approve with the information coming back to us as an information item on the metrics. Do I have a second? All right, we have first, second, vote. Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
All right.
The motion passes unanimously.
Mr. McClure, did we do that okay? Great. All right, we're going to go ahead now and move on to item H2. Adopt resolution number, excuse me. I need to go back to the prior item. I need to open the public hearing. Any other comment? I did. Did I need a motion to close it? Okay, great. Thank you. Then that's fine. I don't remember doing it. Item H2, adopt resolution number 6505 to collect the regulatory fee at the existing rates to implement the city's stormwater management program for fiscal year 2019-20. Associate Civil Engineer Clarence Lee will introduce the item.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is Chris Lamb, Assistant Public Works Director. The item before you, similar to the previous one, is an annual action that the city must take in order to collect regulatory fees that fund the city's stormwater program. The proposed fee, established in 1994, is unchanged from prior years and funds maintenance of storm drains, creeks, and regulatory compliance. In order to collect the fee, the council must hold a public hearing and adopt resolution 6505.
Thank you, Chris. And I just had that Anchorman moment where I read the script in front of me, so I apologize for that. But Chris Lamb provided the presentation. Okay, so with that, is there any public I'm going to open the public hearing. Are there any public comment cards? Nope. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing? Second. Okay, let's go ahead and vote to close the public hearing. Councilmember Carlton?
Yes.
Great. Public hearing is closed. Any discussion? Any questions? We're on item H2. Everyone want to go ahead and orient themselves real quick? Councilmember Nash.
Is there any backlog that we should know about on the stormwater management?
No, this is managing the operations of the stormwater system.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve? Okay, may I have a second? Let's go ahead and vote. Councilmember Carlton?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're going to go ahead now and move on to our regular business item. I-1, authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Nolan Tam Architects for the Bellhaven Branch Library conceptual design options, site analysis, and preliminary cost estimates. Our senior project manager, Murad Fakari, project manager, Arian Kosaravian, and assistant public work director, Chris Lamb, will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Lamb, Assistant Public Works Director. Like you introduced, Mayor, the item before you tonight is the authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Nolan Tam Architects for the Bellhaven Library site analysis, conceptual design, and cost estimating. Very brief project history, and recognizing that there's a lot of history that took place prior to the dates listed here. On March 12th, the City Council at their work plan discussions identified the Bellhaven Branch Library as one of the top 5 council priorities in the 2019 work plan. Previous efforts that concluded on April 16th were the council reviewing and accepting the Bellhaven Library Space Needs Assessment and Study, and directed staff to issue the RFP for architectural services. The request for proposals was issued on May 9th, and on June 4th, 5 proposals from qualified firms were received in response to the RFP. So staff from the Public Works Department and Library Department sat on a panel to review the proposals from the 5 proposing firms, and identified Nolan Tam as the most qualified consultant based on their familiarity with Menlo Park, their general project experience, and relevant work. Nolan Tam's fee proposal is similar to the other proposers. There was a pretty broad range of proposals, ranging from as low as $57,000 up to a little over $400,000. So there's when we talk about project understanding, that plays a role in understanding the needs of the project. Sometimes the absolute lowest is not necessarily the most qualified and most understanding of the project. So understanding what some of the project goals are, the city recognizes that a robust public outreach program will be key to the success of this phase of the project, and this project was one of 3 city projects that will be implementing the local government public engagement framework as a pilot. We're defining kind of a successful project would result in significant input from the community, a site selection project process that evaluates pros and cons of various sites in the neighborhood, and a conceptual design or some design alternatives that have received that community input, and the associated cost estimates that will allow the city council to confidently provide staff direction moving forward into the next phase of the project. So how we're going to accomplish that, broken out into 3 tasks that are identified in the proposal. The first 2 taking about 2 months each, and the last one a month. Site analysis, so analyzing various sites for potential cost impacts, feasibility, timeline considerations, traffic, and a number of other criteria. A conceptual design alternatives once we've narrowed down to 2 to 3 sites, developing some conceptual designs, and then cost estimating. And on the right, we see a preliminary outreach plan identifying stakeholder or focus group meetings and a number of community meetings that we foresee over the phase of this project. So again, staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to negotiate an agreement with Nolan Tam for the new Bellhaven Branch Library conceptual design options, site analysis, and preliminary cost estimation. And myself and Sean Reinhardt, Library Services Director, are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions before we take public comment? Nope. Okay. This time I'll go ahead, open public comment, and our first public speaker this evening is Lynn Bramlett.
Good evening, Council. The Bellhaven branch plans are moving along with an adequate transparency and community involvement in the process. We heard tonight about plans that, for example, weren't gone over at the Library Commission last night where I was present. And what we really need is a different approach. If we're really going to make a commitment to a better form of public engagement, it's different from how we used to go about things. And I think one of the best ways to begin would be to have a community-led group to oversee the process, and not just as an advisory group at the end. The current approach is contrary to best practices for greater community engagement and a more resident-centered approach to decisions and our city's stated goal of improving public engagement. So I did give every one of you a handout, kind of a primer from public engagement. This was another group working on better public engagement since 1975. And what we're hearing here is more the residents involved kind of at the tail end. Decisions have been made, were brought in, more as an advisory group, and I would describe more in a token way. And however well-meaning, this isn't really a modern approach. And so I just want to urge council to, and our staff, to focus on authentic public engagement, which is a rigorously inclusive and collaborative form of problem solving that creates conditions through which regular residents can deliberate effectively on complex public problems. So it doesn't relegate people to the sidelines, but invites them to join. So it's just more of a philosophical change that I'd really like to see our city work to carry out. And a good way to begin might be to have that Belhaven Library Advisory Group to help design a more inclusive process. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker this evening is Pamela Jones.
Good evening, Mayor Mueller, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor, Council Members Nash, Carlton, Combs, and staff. My name is Pam Jones, and I'm a Menlo Park resident, and I want to thank you for your continued commitment to the Belhaven neighborhood's decades-old request for a branch library separate from the Belhaven Elementary School. For years, residents have submitted ideas and plans, including a three-dimensional mock-up of placement on the 100 and 110 Terminal Avenue site, which would have created a comprehensive community center. The staff report recommendation of Knoll and Tam Architects as the most qualified includes quotation marks, Menlo Park's emphasis on a strong public engagement process, closed quotation marks. It is important that we do not have the same lack of understanding and community concerns as in the main library siting process. A review of the video of May 22nd, 2018, CCIN letters and newspaper articles was served to remind us of the flaws in the public process for the main library siting. I'm concerned that we may be headed in the same direction. Certainly, there are residents with the appropriate technical and engineering expertise needed to effectively evaluate complex architectural proposals, as stated in the staff report, who could have sat on this selection committee. As previously stated, it is curious that the RFP in the staff report today includes the following language: a comprehensive site analysis to scan, evaluate the feasibility of multiple potential site options in the Belhaven and Bayfront neighborhoods, including sites currently owned by the city, sites currently owned by other public agencies, vacant sites that could be acquired by the city, and or new development projects that have substantial community benefit requirement among their possible options. To date, the community has not been informed of possible options. In fact, there's no information on our website indicating city-owned, leased, or sold properties, properties held in LLCs, or properties acquired by eminent domain that may or will be considered. The narrative in the Knoll and Tam proposal states, we understand from the RFP that the city may be interested in expanding the range of our community engagement beyond the Belhaven and Bayfront neighborhood library users. There needs to be complete transparency of the intention of the city and the staff for what and whom is driving this project. In order to move forward in a truly transparent, community-driven project, Bellhaven Neighborhood Library Advisory Committee, BNLAC, must be reestablished. Their charge must include participation in all discussions with the project manager and city staff. Again, thank you for the support for the Bellhaven neighborhood's request for a branch library. Accessible knowledge strengthens our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any question? I'm sorry, any more public comment? No. Okay, any questions here up here on the dais? Councilmember Carlton, do you have any questions? Any comment?
No.
Thank you. Any comment here on the dais?
Not at this.
Councilmember Nash.
I would like to note that Mayor Pro Tem Taylor and I have been working with staff about the resurrection of the BNLAC Library Committee, and we are still discussing that, and hopefully that will be resolved very, very soon.
We do have it tentatively on the agenda for the meeting in July. Once we get input from you.
Okay. Any other comments by council members? Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
Hi, hello. I have a few questions. Just going back to a comment that Ms. Bramlett made regarding, well, we got this form. I didn't get a chance to read all the way through it. The public engagement process. Is there an opportunity to add something like this? Is anyone from Nolan Tam here? But is there an opportunity to add a community engagement process to what they're already doing?
Sean Reinhardt, Library Director. Mayor Pro Tem, I have not seen this document that was submitted, but we're happy to take a look at it and incorporate it as best as we can. There is a robust public engagement process proposed through the Institute for Local Government process, but any community suggestions about how it might be improved are welcomed, well received, and we'll integrate them into the process.
Thank you. I am in agreement with the idea of having a community-led process. When Nolan Tam, prior to me being elected, came to the community, that was one of the things I impressed upon them. And I know that usually when consultants come in, they have a choice for you. It's not you creating the choice. So which is why I'm asking about this, to figure out how to make it a more inclusive process. And so just looking at maybe a different public engagement in order to accomplish it. But I also have some concerns just about the sightings, ones that haven't been presented to the public yet. And so if Nolan Tam is going to identify them, or is that the BNLAC going to identify them, or is it the community to identify them?
All three. No sites have been identified at this time, as we have been discussing kind of throughout the space needs study. That process begins with this next phase that will embark when this contract is awarded and we begin that site analysis. All of that discussion about potential sites will take place in the context of the public engagement process with full transparency in community workshops, in stakeholder groups. So that work has yet to begin, and that's why no sites have been put out there as being identified yet.
So looking at the staff report, it says currently owned by the city, sites currently owned by other public agencies, vacant sites that could be acquired by the city, or new development projects. For me, transparency would have a list of what those sites are. So at least we'd have an idea. And so for me, it's vague, because, I mean, I know a site, 100 Terminal Avenue, that's an address, or 701 Laurel is an address. But here, there's no address as to what site you're talking about. And I think that's what the transparency request was about, as far as a list of sightings, so the public would know.
Absolutely, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor, and that is exactly the discussion that we're looking forward to having with community members, with the council, library commission, current BNLAC members, and whatever iteration the BNLAC committee may take going forward. Certainly, common sense indicates that there are publicly owned sites like the Onetta Harris Community Center, obviously. There are sites owned by other public agencies, for example, the current site, which is owned by Ravenswood City School District. There are some vacant properties in the neighborhood, and that kind of fit that criteria. However, we want to have that discussion in full transparency in the context of those public meetings and discussions before we start generating a list of sites. We want that list to be generated collaboratively.
Right, that part I understand, but before I approve authorizing the city manager to execute a contract, I would want that to be specific in here. So for me, I would either have to have language added or language removed.
If I may suggest that should council make a motion to approve the contract, you could certainly add that stipulation that the process be carried out thusly. I think that might meet with what you're asking and could be just incorporated into the motion.
That's fine. I mean, just we'll certainly follow any council direction. But can I make an inquiry? Like, I'm afraid staff isn't privy to the information that Ms. Bramlett provided to you. Is that an alternative? Because what it sounded like to me was that she was proposing an alternative community engagement process.
It looks like it's a public engagement primer from the Center for Advances in Public Engagement, so it would be in some sense an alternative to the ILG that we approved last week.
Staff would be a strong proponent of at least trying the ILG model, and then of course modifying it if it's not working to the benefit of what we're hoping for.
So I have a question about the Brown Act. Can we make an amendment on the Brown Act tonight to include the public, and can we even do this by adopting the public engagement model in this essentials document that hasn't been attached to the agenda?
No, especially since staff hasn't even seen it or looked at it and been able to determine what it is.
So if it's something that people if it's something that people want to pursue, we could put this over to the next meeting on the 18th, or Mr. McClure.
So my understanding of what was said is if the council moves forward with this, staff has indicated that they'll look at that and try to incorporate it, in the process as part of the public engagement process. So maybe the thing to do would be to actually report back what it is and how it's being incorporated, and that if the council isn't comfortable with how that's being incorporated, then it can provide further direction.
I mean, it feels odd, just as a matter of procedure, that we would ask for something to be incorporated that none of us has reviewed. Councilmember Nash.
I would actually much prefer, since we just got the Institute for, the Institute's program up and going, this is our first attempt at it, that we actually give that a good try before we take a different direction. And it seems to try and mix two different processes at this point would be unfair to both processes. So I would request that we have the utmost transparency as we go through the public process, but that we use the model that we just adopted as the sole model at this point.
Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
Just as a follow-up, I believe one of the reasons why it's being presented is because of all the challenges that have occurred when it's come to community engagement, not specifically in the Belhaven neighborhood, but just in the city as a whole. So I appreciate that we've updated our policy. There were some things in the policy that I didn't see. And so I'm seeing this as an opportunity to maybe include some things so that moving forward, we have the best policy in place to make sure that community engagement really focuses on community. And so in saying all of that, I'd like to know who are the stakeholders that are listed in here.
I got an idea. Yes. And we'll go to that.
Okay.
I promise we'll get back to that. But do we have a subcommittee on this project right now?
No.
Maybe these are the details that after we pass this item, we can have a subcommittee appointed to work out details like this with staff. And
Sure.
if there's sensitivities, bring it back to us. Does that make sense?
That'd be great.
Councilmember Nash?
I would just request, right now we have Mayor Pro Tem Taylor and I are on looking at whether or not, what to do with BENLAC. I believe Mayor Pro Tem Taylor and Councilmember Combs are actually the BENLAC committee, and so that we don't initiate yet another subcommittee. I think that we
Let's
actually
just-
should resolve those.
Why don't we just take all of that, put 1-2 people on it, and we'll get rid of one subcommittee, we'll put 2 people on it, they can just own the Belhaven Library. Does that work for everyone? Does that work for you, Councilmember Combs? Does that work for you, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor? All right. So then who wants to, it doesn't work for you, Councilmember Carlton?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So with that, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you set with that then? So we can work out those issues through the subcommittee. Okay, so the subcommittee then, we have two different sets of 2 right now with 1. So I think it comes down to Councilmember Nash and Councilmember Combs, who wants to stay, who is willing to be magnanimous and let it go.
I'm fine with giving it up. Magnanimous, to use your word.
Great. So magnanimously, thanks for you for being magnanimous. You're okay, Councilmember Nash? All right, great. So we have that subcommittee. So then I think with that, then we can go ahead and move the item. Does that work for everyone? Yes? Okay, so I need a motion. Mayor Pro Tem Taylor has made the motion. Councilmember Nash? Great. Seconded. Let's go ahead and all approve. Councilmember Carlton?
Yeah.
Great. If any issues arise, please bring it back to us. If it requires a vote, we'll put it on the agenda right away. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Let's go ahead now and move on to item, sorry, it's in my crease, I2. Approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and capital improvement plan and appropriate funds, establishing the appropriation limits for the fiscal year 2019-20, establishing a consecutive temporary tax percentage reduction in the utility users tax rates through September 13th, 2020, and establishing citywide salary schedule effective July 7th, 2019. Finance and Budget Manager Diane Jacobson will make the presentation. Good evening, and good evening to the rest of you. I'm sorry.
Good evening. Administrative Services Director Linka Diaz. I'll actually begin the presentation tonight. And then from our budget team, we do have here Dan Jacobson, our Finance Manager, to my immediate right, and to his right, Brandon Cortez, Management Analyst in Finance. Excuse me. So tonight we're here to present the fiscal year 2019-20 budget for adoption. And we wanted to start with the key takeaways from the budget. Pardon me. Which includes having sufficient revenue to maintain our core services. And in the upcoming year, we also expect a healthy growth in our property taxes, stability in our transit occupancy taxes, and then known changes in our personnel costs due to contracts that have been negotiated. We've also left a contingency for new initiatives and services. Pardon me. So that you may address some potential changes in the 2019-20 City Council priorities as the information on the scope of planning policies and codes emerges in the first quarter of the fiscal year. Our theme this year is dedicated to continuous improvement. And reflecting that in the budget process is the adaptive nature of our budget team to prepare the baseline budget that'll be here before you tonight in light of the changing priorities that are currently underway. And then also we plan to present to you a budget document that's reflective of the City Council action this evening. So the process for putting together the budget started back in February. when the City Council held its annual goal-setting workshop, and then also approved budget principles that you adopted back on March 5th. And then any service level enhancements that were requested by departments and considered for inclusion in the city manager's proposed budget were described in an information item that was presented to City Council on May 14th. Staff then prepared and released the city manager's proposed budget to the public on May 17th and followed that with a study session on May 21st. And then with the council direction we received at that study session, the city manager's proposed budget was updated and released for public hearing on June 4th, at which time the city council expressed the need for additional data and justification for the service level enhancements that were incorporated into that budget. So last week on June 11th, staff transmitted a report with data and justification in an effort to confirm that direction that you provided on June 4th. The item was continued, and then also last week at the June 11th meeting, City Council did establish 2 subcommittees to explore planning policies and codes in fiscal year 2019-20. The budget impact of that has yet to be determined. It may require additional resources beyond those that we made available in the prior city manager's proposed budget. So until City Council has an opportunity to consider and approve the service level enhancements that were presented and the budget impact of those enhancements, including the new work that may be done on the planning policies and codes, staff is recommending that City Council adopt what we're calling a baseline budget, and that's Exhibit A of Attachment D in the staff report. And that baseline budget will allow city operations and services to continue without interruption, while it gives City Council time to consider the other items that came up in last week's meeting and were presented as service level enhancements. So just, excuse me, an overview of the budget. Across all funds, we're using $2.3 million of the accumulated fund balance, and in the general fund, the baseline budget presented tonight provides for a projected approximate $98,000 net surplus. So the baseline budget that we are presenting tonight includes the status quo budget from last year, which is last year's services with this year's prices, and then we've excuse me, also added in what we understood was your direction on June 4th, which was a provisional half-time senior civil engineer to keep public projects moving, capital improvement projects, and it will also provide supervision to staff in that area. There were also regional or regulatory initiatives that we included that evening. And so those were added to the budget to keep with the agreements and improve the conditions and bring the city into regulatory compliance in some areas. And then what we did is we included $1.5 million in contingency funds for any new initiatives that you may want to consider, including the service level enhancements that were presented to you on June 4th and weren't included in this budget, as well as the planning codes and policies that came up last week, or anything that you'd like to consider. The baseline budget also provides for the Emergency Operations Mobile Command Center, as that is funded through grants, and the contracted park ranger services. This is not the addition of an employee, but services that we would contract out with a third party to help maintain the Bedwell Bayfront Park. And that is funded through a Bedwell Bayfront Park maintenance fund, not the general fund. So what we've excluded and removed from the city manager's proposed budget that we provided to you on June 4th, one, in the revenue area, we had originally budgeted 100% of the excess ERAF funding that we had expected to receive. And instead, we went back to our previous practice of only including 50% of what we project to receive, and then at mid-year amend that to include the additional 50%. We have also removed the accelerated unfunded pension liability payment. So this was a plan that was presented to you by staff earlier this year in response to City Council interest, as well as the 2018 San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury Report on pension liabilities. And the plan provided an additional payment to CalPERS to begin a 10-year paydown schedule of the unfunded pension liability for our non-safety employees and a 15-year paydown schedule of unfunded pension liabilities for our safety employees, and which would result at the end of the 10 and 15-year paydown in an estimated $18 million in interest savings. We also removed the additional staff enhancements other than the half-time senior civil engineer. So that included fulfillment of the library department's organizational review plan, a provisional dedicated person to implement budget and financial transparency initiatives, and an equipment mechanic. And then we had a pilot project that was geared toward increasing class availability at the Oneta Harris Community Center, as well as the replacement of police tasers and body cameras for the police department. And then we provided an interactive budget worksheet. And this was to allow you to see the various service level enhancements that were presented to you on June 4th. We've updated that worksheet on the website and have the worksheet available for you tonight if you would like to review it, including the planning policies and codes as a potential option for working without a $1.5 million contingency fund. So in that worksheet, the revenue assumptions that there are a few listed there that you can work with, and that is the 50% excess ERAF that we've taken out. There's options to put portions of that or all of that back into the budget. We are proposing to continue with the reduced 1% utility users tax, but there's options to change that as well as pulling funding from the strategic pension reserve to make that additional CalPERS payment if you would like. And so all those are available to you as resource levels to include at your discretion. And then so as I mentioned earlier, we did include $1.5 million in unassigned contingency funding. So that's the total amount of service level enhancements that can be approved, unless the city manager recommends additional excess funds will be budgeted. So in that case, again, anything you do with the revenues could potentially add to that $1.5 million contingency fund. So here on the screen is just a list of those various expenditures that are on that budget worksheet. And so we look forward to receiving further direction from you tonight. We do have 4 resolutions presented to you for action. The first is adopting the fiscal year 2019-20 budget and capital improvements plan and appropriating funds. Pardon me. Jeez. So this will allow the city manager to sign off on existing agreements which exceed the city manager's signing authority limit of $75,000, but which are budgeted. And this reaffirms City Council's decision to make those payments. So examples would include existing debt on general bond obligations, interagency agreements such as the shared animal control services, and employee benefits such as health insurance premiums. The next resolution before you establishes the appropriations limit, which is a state requirement annually. The appropriations limit calculation is subject to your direction at this meeting, but the city will not exceed the taxes subject to the appropriations limit. And then the third one is to establish the consecutive temporary tax percentage reduction in the utility users' tax rates for another year. That would be through September 2020. And then finally, we have a citywide salary schedule effective July 7th, 2019. That includes all of the salary increases that have been negotiated through labor contracts, as well as includes the addition of a title, not a full-time person, but the title of Community Engagement Manager, and establishing the salary for that position. So our budget team is here to answer any questions you may have. And then we hope if, after answering all of your questions, that you take action to adopt the budget. We will then prepare the budget book based on your direction this evening. And we hope to have that available by the end of August. And then you may amend the budget as you consider the various resource options, the service enhancements and initiative at any time. We're happy to answer your questions.
Any questions before we take public comment? Councilmember Carlton, any questions before we take public comment?
No, let's take public comment first.
Any public comment cards? No public comment. All right, so now we'll go ahead and move to questions from the dais. So I actually have a question about a couple of these, the next generation body cameras. How soon do we need to make a decision on that before before the body cameras that were currently being used are obsolete?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Dave Bertini, Police Chief. The body cameras we currently have, the V-Views, are already obsolete. The system that we are using is quite a few years old. They don't make these cameras anymore. The company was actually bought out by Axon, and there's no longer any support for the cameras we're using.
Do they work still?
Well, they work. The problem is, as they break, we can't replace them, and that becomes problematic.
All right, so right now in the field, do we have enough in the field?
We have enough for the officers we have, but those officers that will be coming out of the police academy to fill the vacant positions, we're going to have to juggle equipment.
Okay, and how soon is that going to happen? I'm trying to figure out, is it something that we need to take action on tonight, or can it come after we have the discussion that we're going to have on July 16th?
Right. Well, we have two people coming out of the police academy, and then another 3 in the pipeline as academy graduates or laterals. So, from my perspective, the sooner the better for us to start the process, because it's going to be an entire new system, back end also. Going to be recordings are going to be stored in a cloud-based system.
All right. Thank you. So I just have comments for my colleagues to get to the quick of it. So on the ERAF, what I would suggest is we take the other 50% out of the strategic pension reserve and move that money to go ahead and make that payment now. So we make the full payment on the CalPERS to pay that down. And then at the mid-year, we can look at when ERAF comes in, whether or not we replenish the reserve. But I'd like to start that process now. We have a one-time situation occurring this year where we're diving back into the general plan and the specific plan. So I feel comfortable going into the strategic pension reserve in order to keep us on progress for that, but still have the budget be made whole. So that's fine by me, if that's fine with my colleagues. Yes? Councilmember Carlton, does that sound okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate very much that staff has gone ahead then and then made everything else sort of a line item add to this issue. The one thing that jumps out at me, though, is that the community engagement manager is still in here as an add, And that was like a policy discussion that we were going to have at one time as a council. So I'd like to actually move that to a separate item for discussion of whether we're adding a community engagement manager.
Where are you looking?
I saw that there was one FTE for a community engagement manager as one of the resolutions. I think that you just indicated.
So that was actually correction that we made. It should have said communications plan, not community engagement. And so in the...
Okay, so it's just a correction.
It's a correction, yeah, and it's not for a full-time employee.
All right, great. Then I don't then strike that. It's just a correction. I do have concern about doing the next generation body cameras now. I think those body cameras are something that the public expects, and I think I think our officers actually. I think it's the way that was introduced to it was also something for the officers to be able to go back and look at. So I'd actually like to do that now, as opposed to make that wait. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Everyone's in agreement that yeah, we do.
I support that.
All right, so let's go ahead and do that now. I want to leave the UUT where it is. I don't want to raise it. Everyone in agreement on that? No. You want to raise the UUT? Okay, Councilmember Nash.
I would like to have a discussion around raising the UUT. It is something that the taxpayers have, we voted on, the city voted on a few years ago, and this vote is actually to keep it, to reduce it. I think that I'd like to hear the benefits of actually going ahead and letting our vote lapse and having it revert to the full UUT.
So the UUT, my understanding, was passed at a time that the city was going actually through an economic downturn, and was the discussion that was presented to the voters was that tax was needed in order to go ahead and continue a baseline level of services. It turned out that we actually never needed to implement it. Every year I've been on council, because we've not been in a situation where we needed to implement it to balance a budget, we have not instituted it. Tonight we have a balanced budget to go to the taxpayers and tell them that we're going to go ahead and do that. I think it actually isn't with the intent of why the UUT was initially passed.
But just, I think tonight might not be the time to change it, but I think we could certainly put together information so that you have a better description of where we are.
And also what our surrounding communities would.
Right, surrounding communities, and what it would take to modify it.
Okay, this resolution also is, you may change it. So with 60 days notice, you may change the UUT rate. So it will expire, though, without adopting this lower rate.
All right, so can we do that? Can we go ahead and adopt it tonight, but with the agreement that we'll bring it back this year for a discussion? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. It doesn't have to be within 60 days, does it?
No, it doesn't have to. You can do it at any time. 60 days is the notice,
right.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that'll be tabled for another day. Any other items anyone wants to discuss?
Can I just make one point of clarification?
Yeah.
So the community engagement manager, there is that addition to the salary schedule just as a position title, but not as an FTE. The FTE was approved as part of the community engagement plan, but this is just adding the title, but not an additional employee.
I appreciate that. Yep. Council Member Carlton.
I have a question just for clarification. On page 56, it says removal of service level enhancements without a regulatory need or interagency agreement. Can the city manager just explain what that means and what that entails, just so I understand?
So these service level enhancements were essentially anything that didn't have a regulatory need, such as the fire panel testing or an interagency agreement. So Mid-Penn Bikeway would be an example. So all of the other ones that were considered more discretionary to bring the budget back down to a baseline level.
Okay.
Now, there's one item on here I want to discuss within the budget. It's the talking about the herbicide-free medians and right-of-way. So as discussed at our last meeting, it was discovered that herbicides are actually being used in the parks. only on the playing fields, apparently with notice, and there's a noticed time period that that's occurring, but that actually was not, candidly, I think, the belief of council. We thought that when we said it was out of the parks, it was out of the parks. And so this is something that we've talked about is going to be coming back to council for us to have a discussion about how to go ahead and whether adopt a full, complete herbicide ban in the parks and playing fields or what the other options are. But what I would like to talk tonight with my colleagues about is direction around this issue that we would stay using the herbicides in the park until we've had that discussion. Is everyone in agreement that we could go? Yeah, City Manager.
When you say stay, you mean we would cease using herbicides?
Cease using it until we've had that discussion at the council. Everyone in agreement on that? Okay, everyone's in everyone's in agreement on that. So we're not going to use the herbicides, and also since we're going to have it, we'll tee it up for the mediums as well. We're not going to use the herbicides till we've had the discussion. We're going to have that discussion soon. Everyone's in agreement? Yep. Great.
Mayor Mueller?
Yes.
Previously, I remember thinking that in the medians, really, you don't have kids playing. It's not really a matter of urgency to stop using it there. Are you suggesting that we don't use it in the medians just for simplicity, or what was the thought behind not using the herbicides in the median?
We're going to have the whole discussion anyway. My guess would be by July 18th. So if we're going to have that discussion then, by July 16th.
Oh, okay.
So
no, by July 16th is great. I just didn't want suddenly everything to.
It might be the meeting.
Get overgrown.
It'll probably be the meeting after July 16th, come to think of it, because we have to figure out where we stand on July 16th from the planning perspective to know what our available budget is for the rest of the year, which may have an impact on it. So it may not be till August. Councilmember Nash.
I believe that the issue with spraying in the medians was at times it's close to other activities where there was some concern about that the spraying would affect other areas, not just the medians.
Okay.
All right. So we're all in agreement on that issue. With all of that discussion, is there any other direction we need to pass the budget tonight? Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
I have a question just about the deficit that occurred. Is there a specific area, or is it just because there was a deficit, and so we're transferring funds so that we don't have a deficit?
Are you referring to the overall difference between the revenues and the expenditures?
Yes.
Dan will answer that question.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. So the deficit is coming from the spending down of fund balance of already accumulated monies. It's actually all of it is in capital funds. So you'll see some of that in the general CIP fund, as well as other funds of that nature. It's money that we've received in previous years, and now the contracts have just gotten to the point where we're spending that. But we don't show those as revenues in this year. It's just in the assigned fund balance.
Thank you.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve the budget? Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
So are we increasing our FTEs or not?
Not this evening.
We're increasing it by 1/2 of a provisional employee.
So this will actually result in a net loss of 1/2 because the red light photo enforcement specialist was removed.
It's good that I have the finance people here.
So net loss, 1/2 employee this evening. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other clarifying questions or comments? Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, just so we're clear, the particular employee or FTE though who held that position is still an employee of the city, correct? And just not in that red light enforcement position. Is that correct?
The employee that was a red light camera operator had already gotten a new job as a new code enforcement officer, so she is still with us, yes.
So they just filled a role that was vacant. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually, if you want to lead me through the resolutions as motion, thank you, Mr. Figueros. Ms. Diaz?
Okay, so the first one is to adopt the fiscal year 1920 budget and capital improvement plan appropriating funds, and we need to amend the general fund expenditures budget, excuse me, by $2 million from the reserves. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your notes.
It's 2.65.
Let me have you do it.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. So we understand council's direction this evening to be to amend the proposed budget, or the budget that was included in the packet, to increase the accelerated payment of the pension, unfunded pension liability by approximately $1.8 million, drawing that from assigned fund balance from the PERS Contingency Reserve Fund. So that would be an amendment to the resolution. And then additionally, we need approximately $70,000 of unassigned fund balance for the body cameras for the police department.
Great, excellent. So that's, do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. Councilmember Combs will count yours as a second. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor. We'll go ahead and vote on that.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, Ms. Diaz, our next motion.
The next resolution is establishing the appropriations limit for fiscal year 1920.
Okay. And that would be the resolution that's contained within the packet, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I need a motion to that effect. Second.
So moved.
Councilmember Carlton is seconded. Let's all vote. Councilmember Carlton, your vote?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Thank you. Next resolution.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next motion, Ms. Diaz.
The third resolution is also contained in your packet. It establishing a consecutive temporary tax percentage reduction in the utility users' tax rates through September 30th, 2020.
Okay, I need a motion. Second. Let's go ahead and vote.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and then our last resolution.
The final resolution is establishing a citywide salary schedule, which would be effective July 7th, 2019.
Okay, I need a motion. Second. And then let's go ahead and vote. Councilmember Carlton?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much for your work this evening. Very much appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead now and move on to item I3. Direct staff to draft a permanent ordinance prohibiting commercial cannabis land uses and outdoor personal cannabis cultivation. Management Analyst John Passerman will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm John Passman, Management Analyst with the Housing and Economic Development Division, and joining me is Community Development Director Mark Munzer. We're coming to you today to seek the council's direction on the city's cannabis regulations following the expiration of the current moratorium on 29 September 2019. In order to prevent a lapse in cannabis control, the council could direct staff to prepare a permanent ordinance prohibiting commercial cannabis activity similar to the current moratorium, or consider the permitting of specific types of cannabis land uses. So we'll start with a little bit of background of where we're at with cannabis regulations in the state of California. On November 2016, voter approval of Proposition 64 led to the passage of the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. Menlo Park voted in favor of Proposition 64 by a significant margin in comparison with the state and the county. 67% voted in favor in Menlo Park. The act allowed for the usage, possession, and cultivation of personal cannabis for those over 21, but did not address a commercial cannabis regulatory framework at that time. Medical cannabis remained accessible to individuals 18 and over, older. The Medical and Adult Use Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act was signed into law in June 2017 to address the lack of a commercial cannabis regulatory framework. Additionally, the law merged many of the previous medical cannabis and new recreational cannabis regulations. The Act took the responsibility for licensing and enforcement and divided it among the departments you see here: Bureau of Cannabis Control, Department of Food and Agriculture, and Department of Public Health. State requires all businesses to have a license that they must renew annually. Crucially, local laws may be adopted to further regulate state licensed cannabis businesses, and the state will not issue a license to a business that would violate local laws. So we're going to go with an overview of cannabis uses that could be regulated or permitted. Starting with personal cultivation. For personal cultivation, there are two categories: outdoor and indoor. As a reminder, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act allows every person over the age of 21 the ability to cultivate up to 6 indoor plants. The location can be regulated, though, but the activity cannot be banned by the city. As for outdoors, the city may ban or regulate such activity. This is typically done out of concerns for odor or criminal activity. While personal outdoor cultivation is banned in most cities in San Mateo, Pacifica does permit it under certain conditions. Outdoor cultivation must be enclosed behind a locked fence and cannot be adjacent to a school. Commercial cultivation, very similar to personal cultivation, has two types: indoor versus outdoor. However, within indoor, we have a distinction between full mature cultivation and nurseries. Nurseries do not grow mature cannabis plants. They never get to the flowering stage. Nurseries have to sell or relocate the cannabis before it reaches maturity. As with most of these cannabis activities, there's a 600-foot buffer zone from child-serving entities, and many cities in the area have increased that buffer to 1,000 feet. One location that was pointed out in previous discussions on cannabis to be a potential area for indoor cultivation is in the M2 zoning district on Haven Avenue. This is the only remaining area in the city's zone for light industrial with the appropriate building stock for this type of activity. There are no neighboring cities that have permitted outdoor commercial cultivation, but a number have permitted it indoors, including Redwood City, South San Francisco, and San Carlos. Redwood City only permits nursery-style indoor cultivation. Similar to indoor cultivation, testing, manufacturing, and distribution are uses that could occur in the M2 zones or the life sciences for testing. There have been a few cities that permit these types of activities, such as Pacifica, South San Francisco, and San Carlos. These uses do lack the revenue upside that retail and cultivation provide for the city. Moving on to retail delivery. Retail can be either storefront or non-storefront, which is delivery. Also typically abides by or has to abide by the 600-foot rule, usually increased to 1,000 feet. The city may permit smoking on site of the dispensaries, but it is not allowed by default, so it is up to the council to permit. While the city can regulate delivery on non-storefront retail sites in the city, there is no ability to ban deliveries within the city, although that rule is being challenged in court. As with most things, going this way in commercial activity, cannabis appears to be trending towards deliveries over in-store retail. Pacifica, Mountain View, Redwood City permit retail, but have capped the number of locations, and Redwood City and Mountain View do not allow storefront retail locations at the moment. Although Redwood City does have a 4-phase plan to eventually allow storefront retail. Smoking of cannabis follows many of the same rules as tobacco. In addition, there is no smoking in public places within 1,000 feet of child-serving entities or moving vehicles, in moving vehicles. One reason to permit commercial cannabis activity in Menlo Park would be the potential revenue. In addition to state and local sales tax, the state has instituted a 15% excise tax on gross sales receipts for retail. There's also a cultivation tax levied by the state. It's important to note that the state revenues from cannabis have not quite met expectations up to this point. This is likely due to the lack of, or the local resistance to permitting cannabis commercial activity in their jurisdictions. Many nearby cities preemptively went to the voters for cannabis taxes, as you see above. We have San Carlos, Pacifica, and Redwood City, for example. The revenue estimates vary, although Pacifica expects to see estimates between $400,000 and $450,000 once they get all 6 of their retail locations up and running. Any cannabis tax would have to go to the voters for 2/3 approval. Based on a relatively rough estimate, as it's fairly difficult to predict the sort of yield you would get in an indoor cultivation facility just based on square footage, we estimate that a 10,000 square foot indoor cultivation center could yield $500,000 of revenue to the city if there was a similar 10% tax on gross receipts as there is in San Carlos. Additionally, full cost recovery is permitted for staff time and services through permitting and business license fees. So here we have a quick snapshot of the cannabis land use permitted in nearby communities. We have in bold and red where it is permitted, everything else is not permitted. The table is not comprehensive, but it is intended to cover cities of a similar size and character to Menlo Park. Generally, larger cities such as San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland have more liberal cannabis land use policies, while smaller cities not listed likely have not permitted any activities. So we are here for council direction. As stated at the beginning of the presentation, we are looking for the council's direction on cannabis land use regulations. Once the moratorium expires on 29 September, there will be a lapse of local control. The council could either direct staff to prepare a permanent ordinance prohibiting cannabis land uses similar to the current moratorium, or direct staff to investigate the permitting of specific types of cannabis land uses. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to go ahead and open, any questions? Councilmember Nash.
So there's no opportunity for anything short of a permanent moratorium? In other words, we can't have a temporary moratorium or a one-year moratorium, or is it, what is the, it is just...
Yeah, the moratorium expires. We can't renew a moratorium, so we need to adopt permanent ordinance or regulation. You can always amend it at any point in time. I mean, it's not permanent in that it can be amended at any time.
Okay, any other Councilmember Combs?
Yeah, just a clarifying question. With regards to indoor cultivation for personal use, residential, is that if you have some sort of prescription, or is that for anyone? The allowance of personal indoor cultivation, there's doesn't need to be attached in any way to any sort of medical.
You can do personal indoor cultivation for recreational use.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Councilmember Carlton? Okay, at this time, we're going to go ahead and call up Speaker Anthony Duhan. Good evening, Mr. Duhan.
Hello, Council and Mayor and esteemed Council. First off, happy Juneteenth Eve. Thank you for doing a proclamation. I think that's great. So like I said, my name is Anthony, and I'm an advocate for access for legal cannabis. I had noticed your cannabis moratorium was ending on September 29th, and I asked that you consider permitting commercial cannabis in your community. In November of 2016, your constituents in Menlo Park voted for access to legal regulated cannabis by over 6-7%. 3 years later, there is still a moratorium in Menlo Park. At this present moment, over 18 million Californians are denied access to safe and licensed cannabis. When municipalities continue to ban recreational cannabis, the unregulated or black market just grows in its place. Let me repeat that. Banning cannabis in your community only bans legal cannabis. 75% of all cannabis activity is still happening in the shadows due to this mass moratorium statewide. I just searched for cannabis actually about 25 minutes ago, and I was able to find 20 different unlicensed businesses who are able to deliver to this address right at this moment. So regulated cannabis is positive for a community. Oftentimes I hear people speaking out of fear and not based on data. Today I brought a report titled Debunking Dispensary Myths that goes through 42 key studies that address crime, property value, and adolescent use when legal cannabis is introduced to a community. I brought a copy for each council member, and we'll have a few in the back for anybody in the public. So you guys are welcome to have one. This data-driven report concludes that when legal cannabis is introduced into a city, crime does not increase, adolescent use of cannabis does not increase, and oftentimes it's decreased due to the lack of the stigma that was currently present. And also, property values actually in the surrounding area do increase as well. So, yeah, and also, you don't have to believe me, believe the Journal of Crime and Justice, Journal of American Medical Association of Pediatrics, or the Federal Reserve Bank. These studies are all referenced in this report. There are ways to allow cannabis in your community for those who went to the polls and asked for it, while keeping it out of sight and hands of children. Take retail delivery, for example. Companies are able to safely deliver cannabis to those who would like it, while also maintaining a practically non-existent footprint in your city, and you guys are still able to get those taxes. So instead of having to go dip into your strategic pension reserves, there's an answer right there. So before you make a decision regarding a moratorium, I encourage you to give a fair and honest look at providing a thoughtful path to legal commercial cannabis in Menlo Park. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, no other public speakers this evening on this subject. Let's go ahead and bring it up for city council discussion. Anyone want to start off? Councilmember Combs.
So I just have a quick question. You said that it seems like the trend or a lot of this is going in the direction of delivery. But do we know exactly what is the closest sort of retail cannabis outlet to Menlo Park? Like, so if I'm a resident of Menlo Park, where is the closest place I can drive to or go to get cannabis?
So you're asking for delivery specifically?
Not delivery. Is delivery the only option?
I believe that I'd have to double check, but I think the closest, if we're discounting large cities such as San Jose, for like in-store retail would probably be Pacifica.
Okay.
Councilmember Carlton, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I supported the ban the first time, and I support keeping the ban. I have no interest in lifting it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
I have a question about the chart that's on page 89 that lists commercial cannabis land uses nearby communities. And Under San Carlos, it has for testing, it has administrative. What does that mean?
So the difference between conditional and administrative in this chart, it's going to vary by the jurisdiction, but generally conditional means that it needs to go before some sort of commission or a city council to get approved, whereas administrative, as long as it meets certain conditions already set out, that it has the ability to be approved administratively.
And has anyone or any business owner expressed interest specifically in the life science area to do testing?
Not that I know of, no.
And as far as revenue from testing, do you have any data around that? If it was just testing and not delivery or retail or cultivation?
I don't believe that testing would produce any significant revenue for the city.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nash.
Well, I guess I will jump in. And now I've lost my notes. Essentially, I believe that regulation works better than prohibition, and I would be interested in actually having, well, I guess the first question is, what would be involved if we were to say we would allow one retail store in Menlo Park? Would that be prohibitively, well, I guess the costs can be recovered, but would that be a tremendous amount of overhead for the city?
Good evening, Mark Munzer, Community Development Director. So there would have to be a conversation about what zoning district we would be speaking to, and then we'd have to have a conversation about how big that district is and is that an appropriate use. But you do have the ability to cap the number. I believe both Mountain View and Redwood City have done that. So if there was an interest in that would be an ability. We tonight don't have recommendations as to where that could possibly be. And certainly there would be an outreach component to that.
I've actually had people recommend downtown Santa Cruz Avenue.
So we have had inquiries, a few inquiries related to Santa Cruz Avenue and the El Camino corridor since the moratorium has been passed.
All right. And any support on council besides Councilmember Nash for exploring a retail location in Menlo Park? Councilmember Combs.
Again, if I didn't say it earlier, thanks for the presentation, and certainly appreciate the information that a clear majority of Menlo Park voters are in favor of access to marijuana. I would be in favor of an ordinance that essentially adopted the sentiment of the prohibition. It is still a highly regulated industry. It comes with the need for a great deal of infrastructure and I think oversight on the part of staff, and which is, I think, speaks to the fact that it is you see this. Although there are some examples in smaller cities, it certainly is more the case in larger cities, I think, that have the resources to again, better provide the infrastructure that's needed for this. And so, again, I think it's clear that for residents of Menlo Park that want to access cannabis, there is I think, easy availability to do that, and for that reason, I see no reason to go down the path of an ordinance that allows some sort of liberalization of our approach to this.
So I got a question for you. Sorry, Councilmember Carlton.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you.
No, it's fine. You can go ahead and go.
I was just saying, from people I've spoken to, there's a disconnect between voting to have marijuana be legal, and you don't want people going to prison for having a small amount on them, and having a store selling marijuana where our kids and everyone hangs out on downtown Menlo Park. And there's a giant leap between people voting to legalize something and people wanting it sold in their downtown area or wherever. So I think we have to be really careful when we make that association with assuming that people have voted in Menlo Park to have it available and sold in Menlo Park. There are a number of different reasons why people may have chosen to vote for the legalization of it across the state. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't know you were starting to speak, Mayor Mueller.
Let's see, Councilmember Nash, I think would like to respond. Councilmember Nash.
I just wanted to say that I think that it may be our neighbors who would be using, who might go to the store. I don't think it's, given that it's legalized in Menlo Park, I don't think that we need to be, it's not a criminal element that would be coming to the city. I think it's just a matter of whether that's a resource that we want to have available to the city or not, in the city or not.
Oh, trust me, I wasn't saying that it was a criminal element at all. I'm just saying that that may be one of the reasons why people would have voted to legalize it, and that there's a very large disconnect between the different reasons why one might vote to legalize it. It isn't necessarily a clear direction of wanting it sold in our downtown.
So, it's when you're on city council in a small town the size of Menlo Park, when you make a misstep, you hear about it. People let you know. And sometimes it doesn't even feel like it's that big of a misstep, and people let you hear about it. In my time of serving on Menlo Park City Council, since we put the moratorium in fact, I've never heard about it. Never had someone come and say, what the heck are you doing? And so that gives me reason to think that that although we've had inquiries, it hasn't precluded people who wanted to obtain their marijuana legally from doing so. And in fact, I think we probably all have friends, people we know who've been able to just get a hold of it when they needed it legally and travel to a big city to get it, or have it frankly delivered via the internet legally. Or I'm not sure if it's legally in California, perhaps quasi-legally. And I do think it requires. I think Councilmember Combs makes a good point that it does require actually to use it to administrate a Class 1 drug requires quite a bit administratively of city resources. That being said, we do actually have an engagement process that's about to begin about the specific plan. And so, and also, frankly, the general plan. So if through that process we hear from residents in our city who now are going to be energized and come give that input that they haven't over the last few years while we've had the moratorium in effect, so be it. We can take that in and revisit it at that time. But I haven't heard that. And candidly, what I have heard from residents, and I spoke recently to our police chief about it, is that they don't like it being smoked in the parks near their home because they can smell it coming over the fence. And so it's a tricky situation for our officers to deal with, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate that. And because it is legal and we want to respect people's legal rights, but we also need to be cognizant of privacy rights too with respect to people's homes. So how do we navigate that? Not sure. It's an interesting topic. We'll deal with that when it gets ripe for us. And but that being said, I'm not. I don't think there's enough there yet coming from the public to tell us they want us to take this action yet in our city. Could be that we'll get there in the future. I don't think we're there tonight. So I'm perfectly fine moving forward with the moratorium, but then having the process open for engagement with the review process that's going to happen, that's about to start happening. So message to Menlo Park residents, hey, if we got this wrong, come tell us while we're doing our general plan and specific plan review. Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
Thank you. I have a few questions. Does Menlo Park receive any of the tax for deliveries that are done in our city?
No, we do not.
And as far as we are not going to pass an ordinance tonight that says we are prohibiting cannabis, or are we?
I think we have to move forward. I think we have to do it by September 26th, but I think it sounds like there's support tonight to move forward on it.
Yes, so you would not be adopting an ordinance tonight, but you'd be giving us direction to return with an ordinance that would take effect to prohibit the sale, cultivation, et cetera.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that if future council wanted to revisit this, that there would be an opportunity.
Right, so this will be back in front of us. So certainly, yeah. So this is going to be back in front of us for adoption. It's also can be revisited at any time. So it's an ordinance. Councilmember Nash.
I would actually just like to say I think your idea of having it as part of the outreach with the zoning and the downtown specific plan and Connect Menlo and general plan generally is a very good one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So with that, I personally don't have any changes to what's been presented in front of us as what the current existing state is. Does anyone have anything they'd want to change to it and what it would be coming back to us? No. Councilmember Combs.
So with the motion, are we looking for a motion here?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
And the motion would be to direct staff to draft a permanent ordinance prohibiting commercial cannabis land uses and outdoor personal cannabis cultivation.
With the caveat, we'll look at it through the specific plan and general plan process that we're taking up now. As a friendly amendment, you can add that caveat. Yes. Okay. Council, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to, sorry, I have to pull this out because it's not in, again, showing everyone how dependent I am on my script. These weren't included in the information items aren't in the script. So moving on to item J1. City Council agenda topics. Is there any comment from any council members or any questions for clarification on J1? No. Okay, moving on from J1, item J2. I have a request to actually remove that item, to continue that item to our next meeting so that the subcommittees can meet first and integrate their direction into that. And if no one has any objection to that, we do that. But before I move it, I am going to bring up the issue of the subcommittees again because I've had a conversation and I think that it would make sense actually for workload issues to change the composition of the rest of Menlo Park subcommittee and see if Councilmember Combs might be amenable to joining Councilmember Nash on that.
If Councilmember Nash is amenable to having me, then I totally am okay with that.
And this is rather awkward. While I would love to work with Councilmember Combs, I actually feel that this is such an important issue, and as mayor and longtime council member, I would request that you
all right, I'll
would
stay.
remain on it with
I'll stay. That's
absolutely
fine.
no.
It's fine.
sort of like, I'll push back in the sense that I think we have to be respectful to each other's workload, and I value Ray's input immensely, but I don't know that he brings a voice that can't be brought by someone else. And I've been on the Planning Commission for 5 years, so not chopped liver here. So I think, again, like I said, I think we have to be respectful to what seems to make sense, and it just does not make sense for Ray to serve on both of these subcommittees.
I personally believe that Ray will be crucial in getting the consensus that is needed throughout the community for some of the decisions that we will be making. And the fact that he is, has the long tenure with the council is, and also, I mean, I totally get it with the workload. I would just push back that I think in this situation, realizing that you do have the planning and all of that, I just think that Ray's experience with the city is invaluable in this situation.
All right, so this is awkward, guys, so when we do this, why don't we table this part of the discussion to the next meeting? And Councilmember Combs?
No, I just say we vote on it. I don't want to table it. I think the issues are what they are.
All right.
And I want this to be voted on.
Okay, that's fair.
Can I actually make a suggestion?
Sure.
What if we further separate this out so that we actually, Councilmember Combs and I would work on District, District 2 and 3, and that Mayor Mueller would work on District 4 and 5, so that I'd work on all of it, but that
no.
The problem
This
is
is nonsense.
So the problem with that is that 3 and 4 are so closely, they have so many close issues. Like, that would be really hard to separate. I'm happy to work on like a separate District 5 one, but I think District 3 and 4 got to be together. So
If this is something that goes to a vote, I'd just like to be voted on what was proposed.
Okay.
And if it goes down, then we deal with it after. Because I don't think that I've heard any argument that I find substantive or persuasive, and so I think we sort of just go forward. And if we're talking about like sort of this value to the community, essentially we're starting a process of relooking at what an entire council put together. So all of those people had tons of experience with the city, tons of outreach, and you're essentially saying that you think that they did a bad job.
So I'm fine. So what I suggest, guys, I think that I'm sorry, I don't mean to skip over you, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor. Go ahead.
That's okay. I have a question. Since the subcommittees came up last Tuesday and it was offered to you, Councilmember Combs, for the subcommittee, and you said no.
Not for this one. So
not for
this one was not offered to him, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, guys, I'm going to support. I think like I actually am going to support Drew, and I think I can tell he wants to serve on it now. I think it's important for council cohesion. Let's do this. Like, let's have you guys, I don't know if you guys have worked on a subcommittee yet on something like this. I think it's good.
I have absolutely no concerns about working with Councilmember Combs. It's strictly that in the process of talking about the downtown specific plan, you and I have discussed a few issues which I think are going to be somewhat heavy lifts. And we were in sync on some of this, and it's just strictly on because of that. I would be happy to work with Councilmember Combs, and I will not force a vote on this.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have, Mayor Mueller, I have a point of order.
What's that?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but informational items are not noticed to be voted on. Is that correct?
You do have the ability to, when you pull information items, to change direction or clarify things, or, subcommittee appointments that are reflected in the information report. All of that is kind of fair game.
Great. We have agreement now,
You
guys.
can't pull, you can't, I just want to know, because I thought that in the past we said we couldn't. So we can pull and vote on things that are noticed as information items?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Okay.
So we have agreement now. So Councilmember Combs and Councilmember Nash we're in agreement on that subcommittee.
I actually would like one bit of clarification before moving forwards, and that's I do not see this in any way as a failure of the prior council, and I would like your. I believe that's what you were saying, and I would just like that clarified before we work together on this.
Well, I
just,
thought
not strictly just to make sure that our views are in sync enough to be able to work successfully on this.
So the whole process I thought we were engaging in is to relook at what was decided as far as specifically the upzoning with regards to the specific plan and the upzoning with regards to Connect Menlo and the general plan. So, and based on, it seems as though the direction that you and the Mayor Pro Tem wanted to go in was one that sort of downzones those, specifically when it comes to the Bayside area, and upzoning downtown possibly as it relates to housing. I think that is saying that you disagree with the decisions that were made. I don't know how I can see, like usually if you want to redo something, it's because you think it was done badly.
Or because we're in a very different situation now, given the jobs housing.
That it hasn't changed dramatically. I mean, the housing affordability, job housing imbalance, those aren't this year. Those were all issues that surrounded these processes. So I don't see.
If you don't mind, let me. What I'm looking at, what I would like to do, is to look at the entire city minus District 1 and the availability of other sites for housing across the city, not just in the downtown specific plan in the El Camino Real area, and the possibility of looking at upzoning certain areas in addition to possibly converting areas from other uses to housing.
You know, guys, I love this. You guys are I love the fact you guys are going to do a great job together. I love the interaction. It's a little rough on the edges tonight, but it's perfect. It's exactly what we need to get through these issues. I love the fact the way you're engaging with each other when you get alone with each other around the table. I know that you and staff are going to be working it out. I think it's great. And so I think we're good. All right. You're good, Councilmember Carlton?
Yep.
All right, great. So let's go ahead then and wrap this up. We've made the change to the subcommittee, to that one subcommittee. We're going to come back on item J2 with direction from the with a little bit more input from the subcommittees on where we are. And I don't believe we have any more informational items this evening. Does anyone have, is there city manager's report?
Let me interrupt.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bramlett.
Thank
I did
you.
not mean to skip you.
Part of me is debating just sending you an email, but I don't know, maybe sometimes those aren't read.
We always read them, I promise.
I did want to talk about the concept of environmental justice. So at the meeting last week, a lot of what people were talking about all pertained to that. And the staff report didn't include information about Senate Bill 1000, which has very real implications for Menlo Park. And in fact, as I understand it, if we update two or more elements at the same time, that would kick in. And because of Belhaven's rating as part of a tool used to determine if a city can do a standalone environmental justice element or they incorporate it, I believe we would be required to have our own standalone environmental justice element. And it is part of the new state guidelines for general plans. So the document I gave you tonight, just to clarify, it was strictly to give you a little more background about that. And it has a list of state regulations, including a brief detail about SB 1000. And it also references a tool where you can go and look up any census tract throughout California and see how it's, the environmental hazards of the area. And I looked up Belhaven, and it qualifies, or not qualifies, but it, definitely is impacted. So I just wanted to suggest that you consider that as part of what you're thinking about. And I had some other ideas related to that I think I'll just go ahead and email you. But it's very pertinent. And related to this, I also saw that some jurisdictions actually have a growth management element. So it's not required, but some cities have that. Sometimes it's a regional one. But it helps them, mandate that growth and development be based upon the city's ability to provide an adequate circulation system. So there are just some other things that cities are doing that I didn't see in the staff report, and I don't mean that critically, but, it's kind of exciting for us here. So I think I will follow up with a short email just summarizing some of these. But I just want to be sure you all knew about Senate Bill 1000. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Okay, do we have a city manager's report?
No, sir.
Do we have any council member report? Okay, thank you, Councilmember Carlton. I know it's quite late in France right now, so thanks for staying with us. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.